Ukrainian tractor's extravaganza. My sunny day trip to the lake was well planned. I was trying to catch up a navigator's signal, standing lost in the middle of a side road, supporting a heavy lady's bike by my leg. My white shirt and bandana soaking wet under the direct noon sun. All I knew was that St. Martin was near and I had to pass by it to get to St. Vincent-Via Lake. The main road was adjacent to the grape fields where I was posing as a monument to excellent geo-orientation skills. Therefore, I wasn't even slightly alarmed to hear the approaching roaring sound. However, suddenly, from the turn of a road, a small tractor revealed its determined face. It was moving towards me. With a phone in one hand, a backpack in the other, I awkwardly tried to push a bicycle to the side of a road while a tractor drove near. Right after a cheerful thought, I managed. I tripped and fell over the side of the road. Happy that the driver didn't see my gracious flight, I continued to lie down and watch the machine disappear behind another turn. Tractor's bottom reminded me of a rhino or a hippo, a grounded, stable, and determined animal minding its own business. You don't want to stand in its way. That's why I was lying on the side of a road, watching the tractor disappear and thinking. What do I, an almost 30-year-old woman, born and raised in the city, know about tractors? Well, first of all, they are field animals. During school vacations to my grandparents in a western Ukrainian town, as small as it should have been called a village hadn't it been granted Magdeburg rights a couple of centuries ago, I learned that with the help of tractors, one can plow soil, plant, earth up, and gather potatoes in a field. And many more things which are, of course, not connected to potatoes, and that's why not connected to history and experiences of my family. From media studies, I somehow remember the culture of corporate press being connected to tractors. One of the first corporate newspapers was published and distributed by the US company John Deere. The newspaper exists until now. Dialing back to media studies in Ukraine, my old friend with whom we've been friends and neighbors in our students' accommodation, she could drive a tractor. She was growing up in a small village near Poltava, and she said she didn't have much choice because at school, boys could have learned how to drive a normal car and get a driving license, while girls could learn how to sew or how to drive a tractor. The choice was obvious, she said. I remember her back in student years. She was a plump cheek, shy and very diligent student who would take up any kind of freelance job in editing or layout. And soon after our graduation, when the owners of the radio where I was working at that time asked who can make a 10 minutes presentation out of 50 pages boring report overnight, I thought about Yulia. She always made the best out of everything she started to do. So in the war spring of 2022, she remained in Kiev. And together with her boyfriend, as successful owners of a cafe and a few digital businesses, they were delivering hot food to the territorial defense units on a blog posts. That spring, Kiev could become a battlefield at any moment. And Yulia, a slim tattooed blonde now, was posing on Instagram with her volunteering pass and loads of delivered food. I could not but think whether her hardworking spirit, her bravery and vitality have anything to do with her ability to drive a tractor. Finally, One of only 3 books I packed into my suitcase when coming here to Germany was A Short History of Tractors in Ukrainian by Marina Levitska, published in 2005. Now I will tell a lot about this book, so spoiler alert. Originally from Ukraine, parents of the narrator and his sister arrived into United Kingdom after surviving a World War II labor camp in Sindelfingen, which is not far from here, near Stuttgart. After a refugee camp, they settled down for a calm life in the English countryside. While the novel itself is written in a funny, simple, and joyful manner, and the story has a TV kind of plot, I would neither call it a must-read, nor have I enjoyed reading it. The main crystallizer of the events turns out to be a mésalliance of the narrator's 84-year-old father with a 36-year-old Ukrainian woman. Throughout the book, the narrator, a sociology lecturer in Cambridge, is trying to save her quite confused, half-genius engineer father from a manipulative and lying immigrant. During these events, she bonds with her sister while recollecting a complicated history of 19th century Ukraine throughout their family history. What deeply hurt me in this book was a caricature image of the young wife, immigrant Valentina. Her household routines are described as lazy and sometimes disgusting, heading on to the welcoming country, and her husband, high and unreasonable, and her love for kitsch being underlined and magnified. To complete the picture, Valentina appears mean and evil in many other ways. Sometimes the narrator would try to empathize with Valentina by reminding her even more demanding sister whether she forgot how they themselves grabbed any opportunity to help them survive in the time after the refugee camp. But no, it was different for them. It's always different for someone else. Another caricature is what deeply hurt me. Before her arrival to the United Kingdom, Valentina enlarges her breasts, paying for it with money the 80-year-old sends her. She modifies her body to gain the life of her dreams by following the wishes of the one in power. Isn't it a tragedy in itself? But it's always different for those who already have a decent living. This is how class and style are born, when one doesn't have to worry anymore about content, but has energy and resources to care about form. The book distorted poverty and desperation into an image of slyness, wickedness, and willingness to do everything on the road towards wealth and success. Whenever I see tractors here in Edenkoben, I think that's how successful and well-off tractors have to look like. Usually the ones I've seen here were in a good shape and their windows being intact. I was wondering whether there is an air conditioning inside. Their shiny sides and coats of paint revealing their youth and strength. The current century trailers fitted them well. Ukrainian tractors I've seen usually were not so stylish. On modern agricultural fields, of course, one can see the latest John Deeres or Cats. But the ones I remember from visiting the countryside and villages in Ukraine were usually worn off and loud. Yet the not so stylish Ukrainian tractors became stars of the internet. Shortly after the Russian invasion, Ukrainian tractors in the new role of dragging Russian tanks started appearing on Twitter and other social media. Reddit was buzzing with Russian army versus Ukrainian tanks, and it was indeed hilarious, especially after someone tried to sell a Russian captured tank online. To make it a nationwide joke, the Ukrainian National Agency for Prevention of Corruption published a public statement according to which there is no legal obligation to include Russian tank into a tax declaration. However, it would have really been funny if not the war. If not the constant danger for people who just wanted to live a life and grow bread. Now they have to parry, along with the military, an offensive of the second biggest army of the world. The worst news started appearing in May and continue to appear now during the harvest. A driver of a Ukrainian tractor blew up on an anti-tank mine. The news like that hurt much more than any insensitive image of immigrants in fictional books. My tractor stories are erratic and incoherent as a scared heartbeat of a person who fell over a bicycle while escaping a nearly certain death under the wheels of a random tractor in the wine fields. However, this muttering sums up to a few lines. Throughout history, Ukrainians and Ukraine had to do a lot with a little. An impudent immigrant in a book, my friend volunteering in a spring front line of Kyiv, and Ukrainian tractor drivers. They all did what they had to do to feel dignified. For some, that means just to survive. For others, it means to extend the definition of dignity, to help others and to sacrifice themselves. Ukrainian tractors have to do a lot these days too. They collect the harvest while ignoring shelling and hoping the fields they are entering are not minefields. As a fictional semi-mad engineer would finish his history of tractors in Ukrainian, use the technology that the engineer has developed, but use it with a humble and questioning spirit. I would only add that this spirit of humbleness, respect, and kindness is also a suitable attitude towards people who come in all sizes, shapes, purposes, and life situations, as well as tractors, Ukrainian and German.
Freizeitpläne für den Nuklearfall. Seit Putins Ankündigung über die Masseneinberufung in Russland häufen sich in all meinen ukrainischen Facebook-Chats die Fotos von Russen, die an den Grenzen Schlangen bilden und über die Möglichkeit eines taktischen Atomschlags nachgrübeln. Nukleare Bedrohungen sind für die Ukraine dank Tschernobyl nichts gänzlich Neues. Die Wahrscheinlichkeit eines taktischen Atomangriffs wird seit Februar 2022 in privaten und öffentlichen Gesprächen erörtert. Oft wird bedauert, dass die Ukraine in den 90er Jahren ihre Atomwaffen aufgegeben und das Budapester Memorandum unterzeichnet hat, das der Ukraine Sicherheitsgarantien bieten sollte. Den Rest kennen Sie. Als ich in den 90er Jahren ein Kind war, hat mein Vater uns manchmal darauf vorbereitet, verschiedene chemische Waffen zu unterscheiden. Er hatte eine Karriere beim Militär gemacht, bevor er in den Vorruhestand ging und Anfang der 2000er Jahre zu unterrichten begann. Über die nukleare Bedrohung hat er jedoch einen Witz. Für den Fall eines Atomschlags musst du ein weißes Laken tragen und langsam auf den Friedhof zusteuern. Ein Maschinengewehr in den Händen, weit vor dir gestreckt. Wieso fragst du nicht, weshalb du langsam gehen solltest? Eben, um keine Panik zu verursachen. Und wieso fragst du nicht, warum du dein automatisches Gewehr auf so eine seltsame Weise tragen solltest? Genau, damit dir das geschmolzene Metall nicht auf die Beine tropft. Einer meiner Freunde schickt in unseren Chat ein GIF von einer Person in Schutzkleidung, die Hopak, ukrainischer Nationaltanz, tanzt. Einige Beiträge in meinem Facebook-Feed sind ernst. Über den Handlungsalgorithmus im Falle einer Atomexplosion. Die meisten Leute scherzen. Eine andere Freundin von mir fragt sich, ob sie eine Ausschreibung zu Ende bringen soll. Im Falle einer Atomexplosion wäre sie überflüssig und sie möchte keine zusätzliche Arbeit machen. Eine andere ist wütend. Sie hat ein Waschbecken für die Kiewer Wohnung bestellt, die sie gerade renoviert. Was, wenn es nicht ankommt? Eine andere Facebook-Freundin prahlt damit, dass sie eine ganze Packung Kaliumjodid gekauft hat. Im Falle einer hohen Strahlendosis nützlich, um auszuwählen zu können, wen sie retten will. Mein persönlicher Liebling ist die Story über eine Orgie in Kiew für den Fall eines Atomschlags. Alles begann mit einem Tweet, der besagte, es sei einen Chat für eine Orgie auf einem Kiewer Hügel, Schichbaste, für den Fall eines Atomschlags gäbe. Der Hügel liegt in der Nähe des angesagten und schicken Kiewer Stadtteils Podil und ist nur wenige Minuten von einigen coolen Nachtclubs entfernt. Kiew ist das neue Berlin, wurde in den letzten Jahren zu einem unerträglichen Klischee. Als ausgebildete Sozialanthropologin nehme ich gerne an zufälligen Unterhaltungen teil und ziehe daraus einige neue Erkenntnisse. Ich bin einer der seltenen Kiewer, die sowohl den eigenen Wohnhauschat lieben, als auch an einem Chat mit 3000 Kiewer Taxifahrern beteiligt sind oder gelegentlich in das Forum der ukrainischen Anwälte gehen können. Ich trat also dem Orgienchat bei und war erstaunt, dass die Leute statt Fotos von Muschis gelegentlich Fotos von Katzen und Essen posteten, Musik vorschlugen und mit dem Alter der Orgienteilnehmer von 30 plus prallten, weshalb es dabei nach Ischias-Salbe riechen würde. Insgesamt sah es aus wie ein freundliches Forum mit gelegentlichen Sexanspielungen. Später wurden 2 Regeln eingeführt: Toleranz und die ukrainische Sprache als Kernstück des Chats. So einfach ist das. Ukrainer können Russisch sprechen, aber der imperialistische Knoten in der Zunge erlaubt ihnen keine andere slawische Sprache. Schließlich tauchten zwischen den Witzen und Wiederholungen von Witzen auch einige Nacktbilder auf. Der ukrainische Kochstar Yevgeniy Breyger twitterte ein Essensset, das man zu einer Orgie mitnehmen könnte. Teile, interagiere, sitze nicht allein mit deiner Lunchbox rum, dafür bist du nicht gekommen. Eine Musikwebseite erstellt für die Orgie eine Playlist mit ukrainischer Musik. Der örtliche Supermarkt, der für seine Kommunikationskampagnen bekannt ist, zum Beispiel kündigte er kürzlich die Eröffnung eines Markts mit dem Thema Stalker in Kiew an, sagte, dass man sich während der Orgie keine Sorgen um Warteschlangen machen müsse, da es in der Nähe einen Laden mit 16 Kassen gäbe. Der Besuch des ukrainischen Online-Raums vermittelt den Eindruck, Ukrainer wären eher moralisch bereit, sich vor dem nuklearen Winter ein letztes Mal aufzuwärmen, als Westeuropäer ihre Wohnungen in den kommenden Jahreszeiten ein wenig kühler zu halten. Die Ukraine fühlt sich in letzter Zeit an wie ein Netflix-Spielplatz. Sie bietet alles: Leben, Krieg, Tod, Sex, Liebe, Leben am Rande der Gesellschaft, offene Cafés im Stadtzentrum, große Helden und einen großen, verrückten Schurken im Ausland. Nur gelegentlich werden Witze beanstandet. Aha, sehr witzig, vor allem für diejenigen, die im Massengrab begraben liegen. Aber die meisten solcher Bemerkungen bleiben unbeachtet. Humor wird zum letzten Mittel der Vernunft. Wenn man sich zu ernsthaft mit dem eigenen Leben und dem Tod auseinandersetzt, wird die Sache nämlich zu real, fängt zu jucken an und man kann die Tränen kaum mehr zurückhalten. Eine außergewöhnliche Aufführung direkt vor der Haustür, die sich zuweilen zusammen mit den Luftschutzsirenen ins Innere einer Wohnung schleicht. Ich würde sie mir allerdings lieber auf Netflix ansehen, wo ich das Programm wechseln kann, statt vom Tod meiner Freunde im Krieg zu erfahren. Dieser Humor handelt immer noch von der ungeheuren Angst, der lähmenden Ungewissheit der Nichtexistenz, dem Ende, dem Schmerz und den volltönenden Schreien. Das riesige, pelzige Ungeheuer sitzt schweigend in der Ecke des Raums, so still wie möglich, und verschwindet beinahe, sobald du deine Aufmerksamkeit auf etwas anderes lenkst. Veränderst du aber plötzlich die Augenstellung bei der Suche nach einem Wort in deiner Gehirnwindung, steht es wieder vor dir, sitzt, schaut zu. Nur wenn du es auslachst, wenn du über den Tod und den nuklearen Winter lachst, scheint es zu schrumpfen. Das Problem ist, du lachst es nicht aus. Es lacht mit dir. Während du selbst loslässt, hörst du gleich sein rasselndes Kichern und sein schweres Atmen, das mühsam aus der verbrannten Kehle dringt.
landscapes. We are so lucky with nature here. There's mountains. They are so powerful, solid, as if protecting us. Says a Ukrainian teacher of German in Edenkoben, when we walk facing the hills which are to the west of the town. She is from a city on flat land in southeastern part of Ukraine, Sumy. I am from another city on flat land in the opposite part of Ukraine, Lutsk, the most western regional center. We walk with her and look with admiration on the hills covered by rich greenery. Her hometown and mine are quite similar. Both are the biggest cities in the region, with around 250,000 dwellers. I was in Sumy only once. Our small poetry music performance was invited there in 2019 to the Green Theatre, an outdoor amphitheater in the Central Park. We packed our light equipment and white screens, behind which we read poetry as mere shadows. Our musician packed the keyboards, and we embarked on a 5-hour journey from Kiev. After arrival with a quick sound check, we went to loiter around. When I was strolling through Sumy, I remember the deja vu of being in my hometown of childhood, Lutsk. Most of the regional centers in Ukraine are quite similar. Usually they have same central parks. Because cities were often rebuilt after the World War II from scratch, we're supposed to have these socialist approved public spaces, luckily. Libraries, parks, big central squares for the public meetings of the workers. Thus, almost every regional center have this park with amusement arcade and an open amphitheater. Performance I am recollecting now had some 40 people listening to poetry, even during the rain. We were also amused by these local activists who decided on their own to restore this green theater abandoned a long time ago. Revival of the public spaces did not only mean for them the physical restoration of a space, but also organizing events and inhabiting the spaces with new senses. When we were leaving, inspired, an unfinished mural of a deceased Ukrainian singer and songwriter was looking at us. Only 3 years later, in 2022, much more art spaces in Ukraine need restoration. At this time, not from abandonment and underfinancing, but bombing. Sumy is located 40 kilometers away from Russian border. The region was partially occupied by the Russian army after the start of the full-scale invasion on the 24th of February, but was mostly liberated by the beginning of April. The bombings in the region continue. I was recently talking to a friend on a phone who was in Sumy at that time, helping his parents to save wood for the winter. How does it feel to be an hour away by a lazy tank ride from Russia? I asked with my careful and refined sense of tact and humor. He laughed that with all the discussions about tactical nuclear bombing, you are not sure where it is better to be, in Sumy, 40 kilometers away from Russian border, or in Lviv. Lviv, or you might know it as Lemberg, is in western Ukraine. Some Western companies have relocated their staff from Kiev to Lviv, seeking to give more safety to their company employees. As one art curator says, indeed, I'm from a safe city. Lviv was bombed only 7 times. Russian propaganda considers Lviv a heart of Ukrainian Nazi ideology. But my friend was continuing to tell the story about Sumy. You know, the usual air raid sirens, curfew at 11 p.m., Gabions on the road. Oh, there is something new. Recently the street lights were allowed to be switched on, but households continued to be required to keep their windows dark. People are asked to cover their lights, especially during the curfew hours or during air raid sirens, not to assist the enemy's targeting. My native town, Lutsk, is about 200 kilometers away from the border with Belarus. The rumors about the start of the Belarusian full involvement into the war and full attack from the northern front have been coming and going in circles with every other Lukashenko's video or every other semi-checked piece of news. Irpin and Bucha, Kiev suburbs, which now are symbols of Russia's atrocities, were about 170 kilometers from the border with Belarus. When the war started, my father, an army officer, and I, a self-proclaimed expert on urban warfare, ensured that my mom has a runaway bag, maps of the escape routes from the city, and in case of tanks entering the streets, she is ready to leave the city by foot, hiding in buildings. Luckily, so far, the city was bombed just a few times. A gas station, electricity station, the airport. My cousin, who serves in the army, said that a few of his fellows started to believe in God after they left the building, which was bombed in the airport, only a few minutes before everything exploded. My school friend, the popular illustrator, who, unless there is a war, enjoys living in Lutsk, after a few months of will Belarus attack or not, problems with sleep and health, went to live in Warsaw, where she studied at the university. When we met during my layover in Warsaw, she was very anxious and uneasy. I can't understand how long can I go to Ukraine without losing the ability to return to Poland. I need to have surgery and all my doctors are at home. Here it will take months before I am fixed. A freelance illustrator and animator who works with Warsaw and San Francisco, she was so destroyed and dismayed, anticipating the symbolic power of the Polish bodyguard who can stand between her choice. Ukraine, which means for her health and ability to be with her relatives, and Poland, safety, mental health, and working without constant fear of violent death. I was done with my day job. I returned the keys to my apartment in Kiev, and finally I had time to walk around and listen in Lutsk. I was in a small coffee shop in the residential area at the end of July. A shop assistant and a client seemed to know each other quite well. So they talked, and when the woman, slightly above 30, ordered a machine-made coffee, she said, "I just need coffee so much right now. We've never heard the air raid sirens before. The war caught us in the village of my husband's mom, and when we counted how close it was to Belarus, we went to Germany. We just came back, you know. It's expensive to stay there, and my husband was missing us so much. But they put air raid sirens on our house, somewhere very close, and it started screaming. Kids started screaming too, and when everyone finally fell asleep, the sound of the cancellation of air raid sirens started. If it is like that every night, I will say to my husband, 'Sorry, Seryoja, we're going back.' 'Do you have the Danish with apricots?' she asked, pointing at something. 'Nah, we don't have them anymore. Maybe they will appear later,' the shop assistant said. Quite often when I think who I am, I always think what a game of chances it is. My dad, who had an early retirement from the military, to which he is ironically back at his respectful age of 58, could have ended up in any other Ukrainian city. For example, in Sumy, just 40 kilometers away from Russian border, which was luckily defended by Ukrainian army. What is luck? I'm asking myself again and again. What is the luck of landscape and birthplace? How do you get into this lottery? How do you get out of it? Here in Edenkoben, I was walking with Yevgeniy, a teacher of German language from Ukraine, and we would talk about Ukraine and Germany, religion, food, education, and laugh at all jokes and new situations. I would agree or disagree with her, but it was constantly echoing in my head. These mountains, they are so powerful, so solid, as if protecting us. For how long for every Ukrainian the basic need for safety will be compromised? For how long we will have to choose between safety or the comfort of our own country? The country with your dentist and with your gynecologist, with your language and your favorite apricot Danish. Yes, a lot of people have been choosing to emigrate before, but a lot didn't choose. But everyone who was living was hoping to be able to be at least once in a while in a simple and sometimes kitsch park of your childhood, in your city, on the flat land. These mountains, they are so powerful, so solid, as if protecting us.